They say a man can get used to anything. The hum of the engines, the recycling of the air, the constant, low-grade hum of the universe itself. But you never get used to the quiet. The dead, suffocating quiet that happens when you realize you are utterly, completely alone. Set up. The Odyssey was a rust bucket, a workhorse of the outer colonies. We were hauling a shipment of refined iridium, a thankless job for a thankless crew. The pay was good, which was the only reason we took the run through the Ethelberg Nebula. It was a short cut, a dangerous one that shaved weeks off the trip, but it meant navigating a region of space that was notoriously glitchy. Captain Alara Vance was a woman carved from the same stuff as the ship's hull, hard, unyielding, and with a deep-seated paranoia about the unknown. She was a good captain, though. She kept us alive. "The nebula's playing tricks on the sensors again," she announced, her voice crackling over the ship's comms. "Kale, I want you on manual nav. Keep us clear of those gravimetric anomalies." "Aye, Captain," I replied. My hands were already hovering over the navigation console, a cluster of holographic dials and flickering readouts. The Odyssey was old, but she was reliable. Her systems were a patchwork of outdated tech and desperate jury-rigging, but they were ours. The nebula was a breathtaking mess of violet and crimson gas clouds. It looked like someone had spilled a giant vat of paint across the stars. But that beauty was a mask for a gravitational nightmare. Ships that went in here didn't always come out. They'd get caught in a pocket of distorted spacetime, or their systems would fail from the ionic interference. You could be a ghost before you even knew you were dead. Build tension. The first incident was small. A flicker. Jax, our engineer, was in the mess hall complaining about the nutrient paste when the lights went out for just a second. A complete blackout. No flicker, no dimming, just out. "Damn power coupling," Jax grumbled, banging his fist on the table. "I told the captain we needed to replace the flux capacitors on the primary grid." I didn't say anything. I just watched the main screen. The sensors were showing something, a blip. It was faint, but it was there. A single point of light in the middle of the nebula. It wasn't on any of our star charts. "Captain," I called out, my voice a little tighter than I intended. "I'm picking up a signal, something on the long-range scanners." She was at my side in seconds, her eyes narrowing as she looked at the data. "What is it? A freighter? A pirate skiff?" "Unknown," I said. "It's faint, intermittent. I'm trying to get a better reading." The signal was strange. It was a repeating pattern, but it wasn't a distress call. It wasn't any kind of code I recognized. It was more like a song. A low, pulsing hum that seemed to resonate in the very metal of the ship. "I'm detecting a high-energy source." Jax's voice came over the comms, his technical jargon wavering. "And it's not the nebula, it's coming from that signal." The hum grew louder, more insistent. It bypassed the ship's speakers, seeming to thrum directly in our bones. I looked around the bridge. The crew was getting restless. A few of them were staring at the screen with a dreamy, distant look in their eyes. "What is that noise?" the captain demanded. "Kale, shut it off." "I can't," I said, my hands flying over the console. "It's not coming from the ship, it's coming from outside." The lights flickered again, longer this time. The hum was no longer a hum. It was a symphony, a beautiful, terrifying melody that seemed to promise peace. It spoke of golden worlds and tranquil seas. It was a lullaby for the soul. That's when the first crew member stood up. It was a quiet man named Reno, our cargo manager. He just stood up from his station, his eyes glazed over, and started walking towards the airlock. "Reno," I shouted, jumping from my seat, "what are you doing?" He didn't answer. He just kept walking, a soft, serene smile on his face. "It's beautiful," he whispered. "The song, it says I can go home, to my home." The captain was faster. She tackled him to the ground, pinning him down. "Snap out of it, Reno. There's nothing there. It's the nebula. It's playing with your head." The airlock was cycling, hissing open. A blast of cold, stale air hit us. The void was waiting. In the distance, through the opening, I could see the source of the signal. It wasn't a ship, it was a planet. The data on my screen went wild. Captain, I'm reading a Class M atmosphere. Gravity is stable. It's a habitable world. We all stared at the screen, the impossible data confirming what we were seeing. A planet, perfectly habitable, nestled in the most treacherous part of the galaxy. The coordinates for this world weren't on any map because, according to all known laws of physics and astrophysics, it shouldn't exist. Part 2. The Lure of the Deep. Hook. The problem with finding a paradise in the middle of a nightmare is that you start to believe the nightmare is worth it. You start to think that the song was a warning, not a trap. You start to listen. Set up. We were a crew of 12 on the Odyssey. The captain, me, Jax, and a few others, but the rest were a mishmash of travelers and spacers who'd signed on for the credits. The moment that planet appeared, the dynamic on the ship changed. It wasn't a crew anymore. It was a congregation, and the planet was our altar. The song was getting stronger. It had a rhythm to it now, a hypnotic beat that seemed to set the pulse of the ship. I could feel it in my teeth, a low hum that vibrated through the deck plating. We were being pulled in, drawn towards this impossible world. The captain was the only one who seemed immune, or at least the most stubbornly resistant. Her fear was a shield. "Plot a course," she ordered, her voice a sharp crack against the humming silence. "We're going to survey it." "Captain, that's crazy," I said. "We don't know what's down there. The signal is disrupting the crew." "We are here. We found a virgin world, a Class M planet. Do you have any idea what that's worth?" she shot back, her pragmatism warring with her instincts. "We take a look, we chart it, we report back to the corporate council. We are explorers, Kale. That's what we do. We'll just get close enough for a scan." Her logic was sound, but her eyes said something else. I could see the greed there, the lure of a fortune so vast it would make a pirate king weep. It was the same greed I saw in the eyes of the other crew members. It was a greed the song was feeding. "Build tension." As we got closer, the planet's details emerged from the fog of the nebula. It was breathtaking. Oceans of deep, azure blue, interspersed with continents of vibrant green. The clouds swirled in beautiful, lazy patterns. The song was clearer now. I could almost make out words in it. "Come," it seemed to say, "rest, belong." Jax entered the bridge, his face pale. "Captain, the Beauty's power core is fluctuating. It's like the planet itself is sapping our energy, and the landing shuttles, they're primed. The system is overriding the launch lockouts." Fear spiked through me. "Captain, we have to get out of here. This isn't an invitation, it's a trap." "Don't be a fool, Kale," she said, her voice strangely soft. "Look at it, it's home. It's the home we've been looking for." I looked into her eyes. The fear was gone. In its place was a dreamy, hypnotic calm. She was already lost. The captain, the hard-hearted, paranoid pragmatist who had survived countless space battles and pirate raids, was being seduced by a planet. A loud crash echoed from the lower decks. Someone was fighting. I ran, leaving the bridge, and descended into the cargo bay. It was chaos. Reno, who we'd restrained earlier, was loose. 2 other crew members were fighting him, but they were all moving with a strange, jerky purpose, like sleepwalkers trying to wrestle. They were trying to get to the main shuttle bay. "It's waiting for us," Reno screamed, his voice cracking with a manic glee. "It's our home, it's the end of the journey." The song hit me then, a wave of palpable sound that bypassed my ears and sank directly into my mind. For a moment the fear melted away. I saw what they saw. A beach, warm and golden. A sky, a perfect blue. The scent of salt water and exotic flowers. And a voice, so gentle, so loving, whispering that all my worries were over. "Just let go," it said. "You've been running for so long, it's time to rest." I could feel my body relaxing. My grip on the railing loosened. The temptation was immense. A feeling of peace so profound it made all the pain and struggle of life seem like a bad dream. Kale, Jax shouted, his hand on my arm, shaking me violently. Kale, wake up. Don't listen to it. It's an audiosynaptic attack. His voice cut through the fog. I blinked. My mind clearing. The fear returned, and I was grateful for it. This planet wasn't a paradise. It was a predator. It wasn't calling us home. It was calling us to our doom. One of the crew members broke free from the struggle and reached the shuttle bay controls. No, I screamed, rushing forward. It was too late. The bay door was opening. The shuttle was being launched. A lone crew member, a young woman named Anya, had managed to get inside. The shuttle launched without clearance, a piloted escape pod rocketing towards the planet's surface. Anya, I yelled into the comms, turn back, it's a trap. Her voice came back, but it was distorted, layered with the song. It's so beautiful, Kale. The singing, it told me I'd be safe. It promised me. Her voice ended in a soft sigh. The shuttle streaked into the atmosphere, a shooting star against the blue sky. We watched it descend until it disappeared into the haze. And then the singing stopped. Part 3, the Sirens Call. Hook. Silence is scarier than any scream. It means whatever was speaking has already won. It means it doesn't need to sing anymore. Set up. The silence that followed Anya's descent was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. The hum, the constant, vibrating melody that had become the soundtrack to our existence, was gone. The planet's atmosphere looked the same, beautiful and serene. But now it felt like a mask, the face of a predator that had just taken its first bite. We were all stunned. The fight in the cargo bay died down. Reno slumped to the floor, his eyes wide with confusion and what looked like loss. The spell was broken, at least for a moment, but the damage was done. One of us was down there on that alien world. The captain had been shaken out of her trance. She stormed back onto the bridge, her face a mask of fury, but I could see the fear in her eyes. She was scared of losing her crew, but she was more scared of the fact that she had almost let it happen. Get me a signal on that shuttle, she barked. Now. We tried. We scanned every frequency, every bandwidth, every quantum channel we had. Nothing. The shuttle was there on our instruments. We could see it on the surface, a tiny speck of metal in a lush green valley, but it was silent as the singing. Build tension. They're not responding, Jack said, his voice trembling slightly. I'm getting no life signs, no power fluctuations. It's like the shuttle is just a piece of inert junk. Send a drone, the captain ordered, her voice cold and clipped. She was retreating into her command persona, hiding from the horror of what she'd almost done. I want to see what's down there. The drone was a simple recon unit, a small, spindly thing with a high-definition camera and a variety of sensors. We launched it, watching on the main screen as it descended towards the planet. The live feed crackled to life, showing us the alien landscape. The shuttle was resting on a pristine white sand beach. The water was so clear you could see the bottom. The trees were a strange, iridescent purple, and the air shimmered with a soft, otherworldly light. It was a painting come to life. The drone flew low over the beach, its camera panning around, and then we saw her. Anya, she was sitting on the beach, cross-legged, her head tilted back as if she were sunbathing. She looked completely peaceful. Anya, the captain called out over the comms. Anya, respond, what's your status? Anya's head turned slowly towards the drone. Her lips were moving, but no sound was coming through. She looked like she was singing. What's she saying? I asked, leaning in. I don't know, Jack said, trying to enhance the audio. There's no signal. It's like her comms are dead. Suddenly, Anya stood up. She walked down to the edge of the water, wading in up to her knees. She seemed to be looking at something beneath the surface. The drone followed her, zooming in. The water was deep, a bottomless blue, and there in the depths we saw them, shadows, silhouettes of things that moved with a fluid, sinuous grace. They were massive, bigger than the shuttle. They were shapes that seemed to shift and flow, impossible to focus on, like trying to see a picture in a turbulent reflection. Anya smiled, a beautiful, heartbreaking smile, and raised her hand as if to wave. Then the song started again. It didn't come from our speakers, it came from inside our heads. But this time it was different. It was no longer a lullaby, it was a scream. The drone's camera feed went haywire. The picture distorted, twisting into impossible shapes and colors. The comms shrieked with a piercing, high-frequency noise that made us all clap our hands over our ears. And then it stopped. The drone was gone, the feed was black, Anya was gone, there was only the perfect, empty beach. My heart was pounding. It wasn't a hunting call, it was a warning. "Get us out of here," the captain whispered, her voice barely audible. "Jack's full burn, get us out of the gravity well." "We can't," Jack stammered. "The primary power core is at 15%. We've been drained. The ship is in a decaying orbit. We have maybe 2 hours before we start dipping into the atmosphere." The trap was sprung. We were caught. The singing was just the lure. The true predator had been the planet itself. It was a biological weapon, a planet-sized organism that had created a perfect, irresistible lure to draw in ships, drain their energy, and feed on the minds of their crews. Part 4, the gravity well. Hook. You can't fight a planet, that's what I thought. You can't fight a force that controls the very fabric of the space around you. But then you remember what humans are good at. We're not the strongest or the smartest or the most advanced. We're the scrappiest. We're the ones who refuse to die. Set up. The Odyssey was dying. The lights flickered weakly and the air was growing thin. The life support was the first thing to go when the power failed. We were on a ticking clock. 2 hours, maybe less, until we were pulled into the atmosphere and broken apart. The tension on the bridge was thick enough to choke on. The fear was palpable, but it was a focused fear. The song had stopped, pushed back by the sheer adrenaline of survival. "Options," Captain Vance barked, her voice cutting through the panicked murmurs. "Give me options, people." "Can we dump the iridium?" I suggested. "Lighten the load, maybe we can get enough velocity to break the gravity well." "Negative," Jack said, shaking his head. "We're too heavy and the gravity field is too strong. We'd have to dump the engines to lighten that much, and then we'd just be a falling rock." "What about the escape pods?" someone else asked. "They're powered by the same grid," Jax replied. "And even if they had juice, they just get pulled down with us. That planet eats energy. It's like a sponge." We were trapped. The planet, the silent predator, was winning. I could feel the pull of the atmosphere, a faint vibration through the deck plates. We were beginning our final descent. "Build tension." I was staring at the astrometric data, a map of the nebula. My eyes landed on a small, red blinking dot on the edge of the screen. It was a buoy, a deep space beacon left over from a mining operation a century ago. It was an old relic, but it was still there, and it was powered. I slammed my fist on the console. "Captain, there's a relay station at the edge of the nebula. It's on the fringe. It's a comms buoy from an old mining colony." "So what? We can't reach it." "We can if we use the shuttle," I said, pointing at the screen. "The energy signature of the planet is localized. It's like an electronic fog. Once we clear that edge, the buoy's signal will be clear and strong. We can use the shuttle's comms to send a distress signal. It's a long shot, but it might work." The captain's eyes met mine. "And how do we get the shuttle past the planet's gravity well without power?" "We don't. We use the Beauty's gravity. We detach the shuttle, and we set the Odyssey on a collision course with the planet. The mass of the ship will create a gravitational slingshot effect. The shuttle, if we time it right, will get thrown out of the gravity well. It'll be like a slingshot." "You want to use our own ship as a catapult," Jack said, his face pale. "That's insane. The shuttle will be torn apart by the stress." "It's the only shot we've got. We can't stay here. We can't fight this thing. We have to outsmart it." I looked at the captain. We can't all get out, but some of us can. We can send a distress signal. We can warn people about this place." The captain stared at me for a long moment. Then a grim resolve settled over her features. "Make it happen, Kale. Jax, start prepping the shuttle. I want a volunteer crew." The ship's intercom crackled to life. "This is the captain," she announced, her voice steady. "We are going to attempt an emergency evacuation. I need a pilot, a communications officer, and a navigator. The rest of us will stay behind to ensure the success of the operation." A wave of muttering went through the ship. It was a suicide mission. We were creating a diversion. The sacrifice of the Odyssey and its remaining crew was the price of a warning. I volunteered to pilot the shuttle. It was my plan. It was my responsibility. Jax and a few others volunteered to remain behind to run the ship systems. The captain herself refused to leave. She said it was her duty to see her ship through to the end. The shuttle bay was a frantic scene. We strapped ourselves in, our hands trembling. The Odyssey's engines roared to life for the final time, a guttural scream of defiance. The ship turned, aiming its massive bulk directly at the surface of the beautiful, deadly planet. "On my mark," the captain's voice came over the comms. 3, 2, 1, mark." The Odyssey lurched forward, its remaining power diverted to a full burn. The gravity field of the planet fought back, but the ship was moving with all the momentum of a dying beast. The shuttle bay doors opened. We were exposed to the vacuum, the planet's gravity pulling at us. "Engage auxiliary thrusters," I yelled. The shuttle shot out of the bay like a stone from a sling. The gravitational forces were immense. The hull groaned, and the warning klaxons blared. The Odyssey continued on its path, a glorious metal monument to human stubbornness, aiming directly for the heart of the predator. I looked back through the shuttle's rear viewport. I saw the Odyssey descend. It hit the upper atmosphere, a fiery trail of sparks, and then, just before it was consumed, the ship's core detonated. A blinding flash of white-hot light erupted from the planet's surface. The shockwave was enormous. It wasn't a weapon. It was a sun. The Odyssey had given its dying breath to create a star, a blinding explosion of energy that temporarily saturated the planet's sensory system. The song, the Sirens' call, was drowned out in the cacophony of the ship's death. The shockwave hit the shuttle. We were thrown around like a toy in a storm. Alarms shrieked and the lights went out. I fought the controls, trying to keep us stable. "Kale, the buoy, I can see it," Jax's voice shouted over the comms. He was still on the ship, sending one last transmission. I looked at my console. The beacon was there, a tiny red dot. I aimed the shuttle and fired the remaining thrusters. We were going to make it. We were going to get out. The last transmission from the Odyssey came through, static-filled but clear. It was the captain's voice. "The song is a lure. The planet is a trap. Do not approach. Ethelberg Nebula. Sirens fall. Do not approach. Sirens fall." The transmission cut out. The Odyssey and its crew were gone. We were alone in the blackness of space, the last survivors of the Sirens' fall. Part 5: The Survivors. Hook. Survival is a funny thing. It's not about being the bravest or the strongest. It's about being the one who runs away fast enough. The one who gets to tell the story, but telling the story doesn't wash away the guilt. Set up. We drifted for 3 days. The shuttle's life support was barely functional, and the only food was a few stale nutrient bars. We were 3 survivors, myself, a young communications officer named Lynn, and a terrified engineer named Boris. The silence was our new reality. No song, no hum, just the quiet hum of the shuttle's failing systems and our own ragged breathing. The buoy's signal was strong. It was a piece of ancient tech, a leftover from a time when humanity was still exploring the galaxy without fear. It didn't have a distress signal channel. It was a beacon for a mining colony that had been abandoned 50 years ago, but it had a powerful transmitter. We rigged our shuttle to piggyback on its signal. We sent out our warning. This is Kale, Shuttle Phoenix, formerly of the freighter Odyssey. Ethelberg Nebula, we have discovered a biological anomaly, a Class M world designated Sirens Fall. The planet emits a powerful psychic frequency that lures ships to their doom. We repeat, do not approach. The planet is a trap. Do not approach. We sent the message on repeat. We had no idea if anyone would receive it or if they would even understand it. The warning was desperate, a scream into the void. Build tension. The loneliness was crushing. The three of us were strangers thrown together by a shared nightmare. Lynn was quiet, haunted by the memory of Anya, her friend, being seduced by the song. Boris was a wreck, constantly shaking, jumping at shadows. He kept mumbling about the shadows in the water, the shapes he'd seen on the drone feed. He was convinced they were still out there, waiting. "It's still singing, Kale," he whispered one night, his eyes wide and bloodshot. "I can hear it. It's faint, but it's there. It's in the hum of the engines." "There's no singing, Boris," I said, my voice tired. "It was a frequency. The planet's defense mechanism. We're out of range now." "You don't understand," he insisted, clutching his head. "It's not a sound, it's a feeling, a longing. It's telling me to go back, to join them, to become part of the song." I couldn't argue with him. I felt it too. A faint, nagging pull, a sense that we had left something important behind. It was the ghost of the song, an echo in our minds that would never fully fade. The trauma was a part of us now. We were the walking wounded, the survivors of a siren's call. We were drifting aimlessly, our course set for the nebula's edge. We had no food, no water, and no way to know if our warning had been heard. We were resigned to our fate, to die in the cold, silent void of space, our bodies and our story forgotten. And then we saw it, a ship. It was massive, a sleek white vessel that looked like it belonged in a museum, not a frontier sector. It was a Galactic Federation cruiser, the Aegis. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. Lynn, the comms officer, scrambled to her console. "I'm getting a hail. They're responding to our signal." A voice, crisp and clear, filled the shuttle. "Shuttle Phoenix, this is Captain Thorne of the GFS Aegis. We've received your transmission. State your position and situation." We were saved. We were going to live. The Aegis was everything the Odyssey wasn't. It was clean, efficient, and terrifying. The crew were professional, but there was a coldness to them. They treated us like specimens, not like survivors. We were debriefed in a sterile room by a psychologist and a xenobiologist. They seemed fascinated by our story, taking meticulous notes about the planet, the song, and the shadows in the water. They were not interested in our grief or our trauma. They were interested in the data. Captain Thorne, a man with a face like granite and eyes like chips of ice, was particularly interested in the planet's potential as a weapon. "A biological weapon that can control minds," he mused, tapping his fingers on a data pad. "The possibilities are significant." "We aren't a weapon," Lynn spoke up, her voice surprisingly strong. "We were a crew, we were people, we were trying to survive." "Of course you were," Thorne said, offering a thin, patronizing smile. "And your ordeal will not be forgotten. Your data will be invaluable. It will be thoroughly analyzed." We were given new identities, new lives as consultants. We were kept on the ship under their watchful eye. We were no longer heroes. We were assets. We were the living proof of a powerful new tool. Part 6. The Echo of the Fall. Hook. They say the past is a foreign country. They do things differently there. But the past is also a prison. It's a song that keeps playing in your head, even when you're trying to forget the words. Set up. A year passed. A year of debriefings, of psychological evaluations, of being paraded in front of military officials and scientific committees. The initial gratitude faded quickly. The Federation was grateful, but they were also afraid. We were a liability. We had been exposed to a phenomenon they didn't fully understand. Boris couldn't handle it. The endless questions, the constant reminders of what he'd seen. The shadows in the water were always with him, haunting his sleep. He didn't last long. He was found dead in his quarters, an empty bottle of sedatives in his hand. The official report said it was suicide. I knew it was a surrender. He had simply stopped fighting the song. Lynn became a recluse, rarely leaving her room. She was the communications officer, but she had nothing to say. She had stopped communicating with the world. She had become a ghost, just waiting to fade away. I was the last one, the lucky one, the one who had planned the escape, who had pulled the trigger. I was the survivor. I was the one who had to live with it. Build tension. Then the orders came. The Federation had decided to investigate Sirens' fall further. They had assembled a scientific expedition, a heavily armed fleet. They were going to study the planet to learn its secrets. And they wanted me to go with them, as a consultant, as a guide. No, I said, my voice flat. I'm not going back there. Your cooperation is not optional, Mr. Kale, Thorne said. You are the only person alive who has encountered the phenomenon and lived. Your knowledge is essential to the mission. It's a trap, I insisted. You're going there to study a predator. You're going to wake it up. The planet is a resource, Mr. Kale. A resource that the Federation intends to understand and control. You will be on the flagship. You will be safe. Safe, the word felt like a mockery. There was no safety in the shadow of Sirens' fall. The fleet was impressive. A dozen ships, bristling with weapons, surrounded by a cloud of support vessels and fighter squadrons. They were ready for a fight. They were ready for anything, except what they found. As we entered the nebula, the song began again. It was faint at first, a distant hum at the edge of perception, but it grew stronger, more insistent. Shield the comms, Thorne ordered. Shield the crew. I want a full sensory dampening field around this ship. The fleet was prepared. They had advanced countermeasures. They were able to block the psychic attack, but they had underestimated the planet. It wasn't just a siren, it was a fortress. Climax. The fleet descended. The planet was even more beautiful than I remembered. The purple trees, the azure oceans, the pristine beaches. It was a paradise guarded by demons. They sent down probes. They sent down drones, and every single one of them was destroyed. The planet's defense system was more than just a song. It was a defense grid powered by the planet's own energy. The shadows in the water were real. They were biological constructs, living weapons that emerged from the deep to defend their home. The expedition was a disaster. The planet wasn't just a predator. It was a civilization. It was a living, thinking entity, and it did not want to be studied. It wanted to be left alone. The fleet fought back, but it was a losing battle. The planet's weapons were too advanced. They could manipulate gravity, create massive tidal waves, and unleash electromagnetic pulses that crippled the ships. I watched from the observation deck of the flagship as the battle raged. I saw the ships fall, one by one, consumed by the beautiful, monstrous planet. The song was a constant presence, a psychic assault that the ship's shields could barely contain. The crew was on edge, their fear palpable. Thorne was on the command deck screaming orders. I need more power. Divert all energy to the forward cannons. Take out that creature. The creature he was talking about was one of the shadows. It had emerged from the sea, a vast, tentacled thing of living water and shimmering light. It was attacking a cruiser, wrapping its massive appendages around the hull, crushing it like a tin can. Resolution. I knew what we had to do. I walked onto the command deck. The crew looked at me with panicked eyes. Captain Thorne, I said, my voice calm, you need to stop. Get out of here, Kale. This is no time for your cowardice. Listen to me, I shouted, my voice cutting through the chaos. You can't defeat them. You're not fighting a battle. You're walking into a trap. The planet is a maw and you are the bait. The ship groaned, a massive shudder running through its frame. The shields were failing. The song was breaking through. Captain, we're losing power, a technician stammered. The gravity well is pulling us in. I looked at Thorn. He was staring at the screen, watching his fleet being destroyed. The arrogance was gone. In its place was a raw, primal fear. He was seeing the truth. He had made a terrible, arrogant mistake. "Get us out of here," he whispered. "All ships retreat. Get us out of this nebula." It was too late for many of them. The fleet was shattered. Only the Aegis and a few support ships managed to break free from the gravity well. The song, the Sirens' call, faded as we reached the edge of the nebula. We had escaped, but we were broken. We had seen what humanity was not meant to see. We had disturbed a sleeping giant, and it had swatted us aside with contemptuous ease. Ending line. We left Sirens Fall behind, a graveyard of ships and dreams. The Federation would try to keep it a secret. They would bury our story under official reports and redacted files. But I know the truth. I know that the universe is full of wonders and terrors beyond our comprehension. And I know that sometimes the most beautiful songs are the ones you should never, ever sing. The siren's call might be silent for now, but it's still out there. And it's always listening, waiting for the next fool who believes he can master the melody of the deep.